given the moral significance of the topic, impacting capital allocation, in democratic societies that have been demilitarized during a long period of peace, it should be noted that rearmament and a greater emphasis on security do not necessarily imply a descent into militarism. Instead, they represent a realistic adaptation to the end of the global monopoly on violence, which had been exercised by the American empire at its own expense. In summary, Italy's defense spending would be fiscally sustainable but still constrained within its budgetary limits. However, it could also be highly stimulating if directed toward technological innovations with civilian market applications. Germany and the UK are using massive rearmament to replace or revitalize aging industrial sectors, essentially extracting economic growth from military investments. The first aspect, besides tariffs, is closely linked to Europe's contribution to collective security and will be a major discussion point at the NATO summit at the end of June. The likelihood of convergence is high because, without Europe, the US cannot hope to maintain its status as the world's leading power, and without the US, Europeans cannot build an autonomous security capability for at least the next 10 to 15 years. A potential agreement is emerging in which European nations will allocate 5% of their GDP to security spending. Italy should focus its security enhancements on the industrial sectors where it already excels: space, helicopter technology, maritime, both surface and underwater, missile systems, and robotics. It should also establish industrial consortiums in these areas with companies from the G7 and other compatible nations beyond Europe. Within this framework, Italy could achieve global leadership in at least 35 critical technological sectors, offering strategic geopolitical and geoeconomic advantages. The United States remains a superpower but can no longer maintain global superiority alone in the face of hostile emerging powers and multiple crises. Therefore, Europeans will have to spend more on their own security and deterrence. In this scenario, key points include the reorganization of US-EU relations and technological choices. European financial actors are beginning to assess the effects of increased military spending, shifting from a selective focus to one on systemic effects over a 15-year horizon. The correlation between security investments and technological revolution is already evident. However, its expansive and futuristic effects will vary depending on the political choices of each nation. Here is a preliminary analysis of those relevant to Italy. Is this sustainable for Italy? The 2% target has already been approved. An additional 1.5% will be manageable if it includes broader security expenses already accounted for in the national budget. The remaining 1.5% could become flexible over multiple years, for instance, through the inclusion of the British-Italian-Japanese Sixth-Generation Fighter Program, GCAP, within NATO calculations.